This call is now being recorded.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, you are not audible, sir.
So I'm doing a uniaxial load problem. So I have taken a bar and applied load P on both the ends. So you see, if I take a cross section here, I take a cutting plane here. Now I draw free body diagram of this part. These are the internal forces. They have to equilibrate against P. So the total amount of force, net force will be P. You assume force, internal force is uniform over this cross section. So your stress becomes P by A. You take a cutting plane here. Again, you show external forces and internal forces. Again, you find your stress is P by A. So you see, so we can find stresses on all planes, any plane if you wish. Suppose I have a loads like this instead of load at the end. I have load at different points. 1 kilonewton here, 2 kilonewton here, and 3 kilonewton here. Still, you see the body is in equilibrium. You take this cross section. So there has to be, you draw free body diagram of this part. The total force has to be 3 to equilibrate. So sigma xx at this plane AA is 3 by cross sectional area. You take, had you drawn free body diagram of the right part, plane is AA only, but now there are forces 2 and 1. To equilibrate, you need force 3 here. So again, your sigma xx is 3 by A. You see, force is negative, area normal is negative. Okay, so you get a positive stress. But had you want, if you want on this plane, then what will be your 1 kilonewton here, and this is the internal force is on this plane. So that force has to be 1. So your sigma xx on this plane BB is equal to 1 by A. Any doubts? So this is a standard problem I always put in the exam. So at this position, you will find that there is a stress discontinuity. Till here the stress is 3. After this stress is 1. 3 by A, then 1 by A. Any problem? Now if I give you a block like this, they have force like this. So you have got a uniformly distributed force here. If I want you to find sigma yy here, what is the value? Can anybody tell me the sigma yy on this surface? Yes,
Sir, 0.
very good. And sigma xy on this surface, you see it is a free boundary. There is no force in xyz direction. So all those stresses will be 0. But if I take a plane like this, you see, you have only sigma xx on this plane. Sigma xx is there, which is p by a. You can also have sigma yx, sigma zx. But there is no force which requires them, so they will be 0. If you draw free body diagram, here you have got internal forces. There is no external force in y direction. It's not there, so there cannot be any external force in y direction on the internal face. Okay, so they will be automatically 0. And on this surface, which is a free boundary, there is no force, so all stresses are 0. But only thing is this index, right index, which is for the area normal, that you have to stay fixed. Sigma xy, sigma yy, sigma zy, they will be all 0. Similarly, suppose you have a hole. You have a plate with a hole. Okay. Now, what you can do, you can take a coordinate system. So here you can define a radial direction and a theta. In polar coordinates, you see I had defined r and theta direction. So on this surface, you see on this surface, what is the area normal of this surface? Anybody? What is the direction of area normal of the hole?
Sir, r cos theta.
That is along r direction. You can say it is ER direction. This direction is known as ER direction. And this direction is known as E theta direction. If you go back to your lectures on mechanics, you will see that. So what is sigma RR? Yes, anybody? It's a hole. So it's a free boundary. Just like you have a free boundary, these are free boundaries. Similarly, this is a free surface. It's not a pressurized hole. Okay. Had I put some fluid in it and pressurized it, but there is no fluid here, it's just empty air. Empty air cannot apply any force here. So sigma RR is 0, sigma theta R is 0. There is no force in tangential direction on this surface. But you cannot tell that sigma xy is 0 or sigma xx is 0. Because you know that there is no force in perpendicular to this surface and tangential to this surface. All right. But suppose you take any cutting plane, now there is an issue. You take a cutting plane, now you see on this surface there will be stresses, but internal forces will be there. There can be internal forces here. You don't know about them as soon as you cut it. But once it is a free surface, like this is a free surface, so you know there is no force in sigma theta, sigma r direction, or sigma z direction. So all those stresses will be zero. Any doubts? Any questions? And on this surface, what are the stresses defined? You can sigma xx, sigma yx, sigma zx, and they are all zero. Okay, because there is no force, no external force, no internal force. If you have any questions, you can ask. Now I will do a problem of self weight. You take a bar, you fix it somewhere here. Now it is under its own weight. So I want to find stress distribution in this bar. Suppose I take this direction as x direction. I can choose any direction as x direction. What is sigma xx here? On this face, is there any force? Is there any external force on this face? No. So sigma xx on this face is zero. On this face, you expect some external force. You see, weight of the block is W. So there has to be a force resisting this W. So this is another W. So sigma xx at this face is W by A. You see, force is negative, area normal is negative. So stress becomes positive. Now, if I take some arbitrary plane, I take a plane like this. Now, you see, this is my plane A. Now there is a body force or weight acting on this bar. If I take this distance as x, what is this distance? L minus x. If the total length is L, the distance of this part is L minus x. So what is the weight acting here? L minus x into W by L. Any doubts? So that is the weight of this part of the block. So what is sigma xx here? This is your sigma xx. You can write W by A. So you found stress at any position x from the fixed end. Put x is equal to 0. Sigma xx becomes W by A. Put x is equal to L. Sigma xx becomes 0. So what do we expected? At point x is equal to L, it should be 0. It is coming. Any doubts? It is simple. Now, suppose I want to find what is the stretch in the bar. How much is the change in length of the bar? I take a small element dx. This dx is at a position x. What is the stress here at this? To take this dx. What is the stress in this dx? Sigma xx I found was W by A 1 minus x by L. So this is your sigma xx at position x. So what is strain? Strain you know is stress upon strain. So you will get W by A 1 minus x by L. This is a strain. What is the change in this length of this element of thickness dx? This change will be, you can call it dl. strain is change in length upon original length. So change in length becomes W by AE 1 minus x by L into dx. So you have multiplied it with the original length. Now if I want to find total change in length of the bar, I have to integrate from 0 to L. So this change in length depends on the position of this element dx. You see? So W by A 1 minus x by L dx. You have to integrate. So W by A is a constant, it comes outside. You get 1 minus x square by 2L. This is you take the limit 0 to L. What do you get? W by A L minus L square by 2L. So you get W L Any doubt? So this is a change in length. Suppose you had applied a load P here. In that case, there was a case of a uniform stress. The stress is same over the entire length. Now the stress is non-uniform here. In the case of a self-weight, stress is a function of position. In this case, what was your sigma xx? P by A throughout the bar. What is the strain? P by A. What is the total change in length? Because epsilon xx is what? Delta L by L. So that you can use because you have a uniform stress. So you can say if you have taken a small element of length dx, what is your dl? P by AE into dx. Strain into original length. But if you integrate, since this is a constant P by AE, you just get x 0 to L, so you get PL by AE. So in the case of a uniform stress, you see your stretch is this. In case of a non-uniform stress, you see your stretch comes to be this. Now, what is the work done by gravitational force? What is the work done by gravitational force here? You take this small element. What is the gravitational force on this element? Rho g into the volume of the element. Volume of the element you take as AdX. So this is the weight. What is the displacement of this element? You have to find the displacement of this element. Then what is the work done? Half rho g A dx into this displacement. So what is the displacement function? We had found that delta L, we found sigma xx is W by A 1 minus x by L. So what was our strain? Strain is also called du by dx or del u by del x. So that becomes W by AE 1 minus x by L. So what if you integrate it? So you have to integrate from 0 to x position. So you get a displacement at position x. Displacement at position 0 is 0 because that end is fixed. Again, you are doing the same thing. W by A x minus x square by 2y. So what is your displacement at position x? Okay. Now, this element, what was the gravitational force? Rho G A dx. Because of the gravitational force, this is the displacement. And since it is done quasi-statically, you are assuming quasi-static loading. You have to multiply a factor of half. So this is the work done in the process. Now this you have to integrate to get the total work done over the entire bar. So you do, now you take out the constant terms. So constant terms you have taken out. X square by 2 minus x cube by 6. L. 0 to L. So you just put the limits. So x is equal to L, you get L square. 1 by 2 minus 1 by 6. So what is that equal to? 3 minus 1. So this becomes 1 by 3. So your answer is rho G L square
Excuse me, sir.
by 6E. Yes?
Sir, why you took 1 by 2 in the equation of gravitational force in mg?
But for quasi-static load, load is gradually applied. So you see, load is gradually applied. So what is the work done when your load is gradually applied? It is the area under the triangle. If it was suddenly applied, you would have had the full load from the beginning to the you see in this case of a spring, you assume that load is gradually applied. So force in the spring grows linearly. Had you suddenly applied the force, there would have been dynamics involved, and you would have had acceleration and oscillations. So we'll discuss that another day. If it is gradually applied, restoring force of the spring equals the applied force, and you lead it to the full force gradually. So there won't be any oscillations and dynamics and generation of kinetic energy. That you have avoided. You have assumed that always equilibrium is established. So this is the work done by the gravitational force for the stretching of the bar. Also, you can find work done by an expression by strain energy. So what is the strain energy? I have not discussed strain energy so far, but I will just give you the formula. Sigma square by 2E. Integrate over the volume. This term is known as strain energy density. So I had already formed stress for you people. What was the expression for stress? W by A, 1 minus x by L. This was because your stress was a function of x. This you have to integrate over the volume. So volume of the element is A dx. You integrate from 0 to L. You will get the same answer as above. If you do not get, there is some calculation mistake. You just check it out. So now I am going to go to torsion. So up to this point, this will be in the syllabus for your first exam on 14th October. And torsion will be there on 21st October exam. Simple enough.
Sir, stress tensor and characteristics. That's it.
You just see, whatever I have taught till now, only that is a course. So you just check out. Do you have any class after 11 o'clock? Between 11 to 12, do you have any class?
Yes, sir. I'm going.
Yes, sir.
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay, not an issue. I will wind up at 11. Now, what is torsion? Torsion is a different thing as compared to what I did till now, uniaxial load. You assume there is a twisting movement. You twist a chalk, you see what kind of failure it has. Suppose I call this twisting movement as T. If I take my coordinate system as this, if I take this as my coordinate system, then what is this twisting movement notation? Anybody? I am twisting it about its axis. So this twisting movement will be called Tz. And this is a counterclockwise twist. So this is positive. This is a counterclockwise twist. This Tz is negative. So you see total movement about this, total movement applied to this chalk is this Tz minus that Tz on the left hand side equal to 0. So this cylinder, this is a cylinder, circular cylinder of uniform cross section. So the movement, this torque is 0. Net torque is 0 on this, otherwise this will have gone into a spin. It would have started, it would have developed a angular acceleration. Now it is in equilibrium. On one side there is a positive movement, another side there is a negative movement. Or you fix it to the wall. If you fix it to the wall and you apply a movement, you apply a torque, you are applying a twisting movement in z direction, then the wall will apply a movement in the other direction to prevent its rotation. Now, you draw any cross section. You take any cross section. This is the external torque. The forces here on this cross section, they will make another torque. So this will be internal resisting torque, which will counter this external torque, so that this piece is in equilibrium. Similarly, if you look at this part, you will find an equal and opposite torque. You see, Newton's third law will always work. This torque is a negative torque, this is a positive torque. And here you are having a, from the wall you are having a negative torque. Always equilibrium will be established. So you will find, if you draw graph between torque at any cross section over the length, it is the same everywhere. Okay. Now we want to see what are the stresses developed in this cylinder. So this is the way you can see your piece of cylinder. This is its cross section. This was your z-axis. Your x, y, and z-axis. You see right hand rule. Your z-axis will come to this position. If you turn the x-axis towards y-axis, it will counterclockwise rotation of the screw, and the screw will translate in positive z direction. So here, if you see, this is your y-axis, and this is your x-axis. I have drawn this plane. If you look at this plane, take any plane. If you draw it here, it will look like this. Any doubt about this? This coordinate system. So if you take any point here, you say this is angle theta, this is r. This distance is r, put big R. This is the radius of the cylinder. Now what is assumed is, first we assume the kind of deformation it has. Assume the deformation. If you want to find the stresses, you have to assume the deformation. So this is known as inverse approach. In the case of uniaxial problem, I had found stresses first and then the deformation. Here I first assume the deformation. Okay. So what is the assumptions? cross-sectional planes remain plane. During deformation, these planes, they do not do warp, they stay flat. Then they undergo rigid rotation. Take any plane, it will just rotate fully. It turns and it rotates some amount. Different planes, cross-sectional planes, undergo different rotation, different amount of rotation. You see this fixed plane, will it rotate? It is fixed, so how it can rotate? It will undergo zero rotation. And this plane at the last point, it rotates the maximum. So you will see that amount of rotation, zero here, maximum value here, suppose theta naught. So it will go from 0 to theta naught over the length L. Any doubts? Just like the case of spring. Spring, what you did, you applied a weight here. You will find this undergoes deflection. This point doesn't move at all. This point will move corresponding to this length. This point will move corresponding to the entire length. This will move maximum. This will move zero. So you'll find your stretches 0 to maximum value linearly increases over the length level. Same thing is happening here. Okay. Now what happens? Whenever you are doing any twisting, whenever you are doing any rotation, what is this rotation? This line goes here. This is a rigid rotation. Suppose there was some other line. This will go. All lines will rotate by an equal amount. So this is rigid rotation. What is the displacement of the point at the center, at the axis? Point here will go maximum distance. Point here will go less distance. So point at the center goes zero distance. Axis point goes zero distance. So what is the displacement of this point? Displacement of the farthest point, it will be theta into the proportion to the distance r. Whatever is the rotation into this distance from the axis of rotation. Any problem? So you see the points on this axis, they do not move at all. This was my original line on this rod. After deformation, you will find this line has rotated. You see there will be some, and because of rotation this point comes here, so there is a rotation. So what is this length? What is the amount of rotation? What is this movement? So this displacement becomes . let's call it r theta. If this rotation is theta, so this movement will be r theta. R is the distance of this point from the center. So what is this angle then? If you call this angle as gamma, what will be this angle? The length of the rod is L. So what is this angle? R theta by L. Can you see this? This is some arc. This is some length L. So this change in angle, this small angle by which this line rotates is r theta by L. So what is seen is you had initially two lines. One line was this, another line was this horizontal line. There is a change in this angle. Earlier the angle was 90 degree. Now this angle has changed by gamma. And this angle is called shear strain. So change from 90 degrees. Amount of change introduced. Then there is a relation in which is called constitutive law. One constitutive law you have already seen. In the uniaxial case, sigma xx is equal to E epsilon xx. Now you will see another constitutive law. Tau. You see what are the two directions here? First we will see what is the strain, then we will go to I'll call this strain as shear strain. This is r theta by L. And this stress as shear stress given by shear modulus into gamma. G is my shear modulus. I'll explain to you later on. This G is equal to E upon 2 into 1 plus nu. This is a Poisson ratio. So this is a shear stress. The shear stress is in this case become G r theta by L. You see your shear stress is a function of r, distance from the axis of the shaft. Now you will realize that this shear stress is nothing but tau theta z. I will explain you how. Z is the plane, cross-sectional plane is Z plane. Just see. This was my cross-sectional. This is the cross-sectional plane. The normal vector is of this plane is in Z direction. So you will say stress on this surface is tau. Here you have to put some theta. Why? Because you will realize that the force is in theta direction. This is the direction of force on this cross-sectional plane. And this was your x-axis, this was your y-axis, this is r direction, this is theta direction. So your force is in theta direction at any position, tangential to the circumference. So your tau theta z you found was G r theta by L. Now this was my cross section, my x y directions. You take a small element here. You take this element. What is the area of this element? Area of this element is r d theta becomes this length, and this length in the radial direction is dr. So this is the area of this element. And what is the force on this element? This stress into the area. So this is the force coming on this element, and you will realize what is this force? G r theta by L. Area is r d theta dr. What is the direction of this force? Direction of this force is tangential. It is a theta direction. So I use this theta direction. Now I want to see what is the movement exerted by this force about the center. That will be what? Radial vector to the force. What is the radial vector to the force? R, ER, cross this entire amount. G theta R square by L, D theta dr. I will be uploading the video. You have to peacefully study it. ER cross E theta. What is ER cross E theta? Suppose it is equal to K. Already I have dealt with this. So G theta by L, R cube, dr d theta. Now if I want to integrate from 0 to R, capital R, I want the total twisting movement by this internal force. This is a stress which is linearly increasing from 0 to the periphery. So you take out the constant term. R cube is R4 by 4. Integral over, you have to also integrate over the theta. So that there is nothing depends that on theta. This is the overall rotation. I took the rotation of the far end. So this rotation is not rotation of this angle. This is over that space coordinate. This is that space coordinate theta. This is not that rotation theta, theta naught. So that rotation, there is nothing that depends on rotation. So you get the 2 pi factor. So you get G theta naught by L pi R4 by 2. This you will know is IP, polar moment of area. Cross sectional area. So for a disk, you know what is the IP? Area into R square by 2. So area of the disk cross section is pi R square. So you get pi R square into R square by 2. So this is known as G theta naught pi L IP. So this is equal to the torque applied. This torque was applied on the external boundary. So that's it. So you can find what is the rotation of the far boundary. External torque applied L upon GIP. Now we found an expression for tau theta z. So tau theta z I was told you was theta naught R by L. So that was the movement of the point on the far end was theta naught R. I divided by L to find gamma, and then I had to multiply by shear modulus. So this was my shear stress. Now you put the value of theta naught which you found. So you get G R by L, external torque L upon GIP. So what do you get? So you see G cancels with G, L cancels with L. So your shear stress at any point is a function of external torque into R upon IP. So you see this circle, this is a cross-sectional plane. So your shear stress is 0 here, maximum here. It's linearly increasing. Linearly increasing with R. IP is, what is your IP? Pi R4 by 2. Total radius of the cylinder. So you could find shear stress distribution. You could find total twist of the cylinder. You see twist was equal to TL upon GIP. You see in the case of a uniaxial load, what we found PL by AE was the change in length. So you can write this P by A P by stiffness. K is the stiffness. So what was your stiffness? EA by L. So that's the stiffness for the bar. And what is the, this is called torsional rigidity. There we called stiffness. So what is that torsional rigidity? T upon GIP by L. So you see there is a correspondence between uniaxial load and twisting of a bar, twisting of a rod. So in fact I have covered almost all that is required for torsion. Another thing that I haven't told you is complementary shear stresses are equal. Suppose you have a plane like this, you have a body like this. Now I apply a shear stress here. So there has to be a force in this direction to equilibrate against this. But they together are making a torque, a counterclockwise twist. So how you can counterclockwise? You apply a clockwise twist. So this is known as tau yx. This is known as tau xy. This is all we have already done. I had told you that these are all positive shear stresses. Area normal negative, force positive. Area normal positive, force positive. Area normal negative, force negative. Area normal positive, force positive. Area normal negative, force negative. All these stresses are positive, and you will also know that see that these are equal for moment equilibrium. Suppose you take movement about this point O, then these two are causing a clockwise twist. So what is the twist caused by tau xy? What is the force acting on this plane? What is the area of this plane? dx dz. What is this movement arm? dy. If you look at movement exerted by caused by these forces, it is counterclockwise. So there is a negative sign plus tau yx. What is the cross-sectional area? dy dz. dz is the depth. What is the force arm? dx. This has to be 0 for movement equilibrium. So you see tau xy is equal to tau yx. So shear stresses are complementary in nature and they are equal. Otherwise you will not have movement equilibrium. Now I will advise you all to study the book called Python. It has done, you look at the chapters on bar and torsion. I have already done trusses with you. So all that is nothing difficult about it. One more problem I generally like to teach the students. This you will see also in Python. You see these two bars will stretch because of a load if I apply here. Like a truss problem, it's a single two force system. So this bar is either stretching or compression. If it stretches, it goes like this. This goes like this. But since they have to maintain continuity, they will suffer rotation. You see rotation movement is at 90 degrees. So this is the final position of this pin. So you want to find this stretch, this displacement of the loading point. So this you look at Python how he has done, because this distance we know by stretching. If you apply force P here, you come to know what is the tension here to equilibrate. So you can find the stretch in this bar by Hooke's law. Stress upon Young's model is strain. Strain into original length gives you this change in length. And this you just do some trigonometry and you will come to know there is a relation between this and this, and you find the stretch in the bar. You find the displacement of the force P. And what is the work done? Work done is half P into this delta. So you come to know what is work done by the external force, and you equate it to the. You also find the strain energy stored in these two bars. They have to be equal. Hello, can I talk after 2 minutes? I talk to you after 2 minutes. Okay? Any questions? So I have covered all the syllabus of the next two exams. You work on Python, and I think there won't be any issue. If there is an issue, we will sort it out. Okay? You start reading those two chapters. So I'll be uploading it. You peacefully study.